Black teen fixes $1 million robot with $5 part. Company begs him to work for them. Jaden Walker didn't look like the kind of kid who fixed $1 million robots. Most mornings he rolled out of bed in the tiny second-floor apartment he shared with his mom and younger brother, pulling on the same pair of dark jeans that were starting to fray at the knees and a faded gray hoodie whose drawstrings were long lost. He'd scoop instant coffee into a chipped mug, lean over the table littered with loose wires and stripped circuit boards, and stare at the mess until the caffeine hit. Then he'd breathe and get to work. Work for Jaden wasn't school, not really, not in the way anyone else meant it. Sure, he went, sat in the back, pretended to take notes. But algebra classes felt like reading the alphabet after you'd already written poetry. Physics lessons were mind-numbing when you'd already built your own coil gun with spare parts. Teachers didn't know what to do with him. Some praised him, some gave up on him, most just told him to try harder at staying on task, as if any task they assigned was going to compare to the engines and circuits waiting at home. But that morning, even his cluttered corner of the dining room couldn't hold his attention. Because he had somewhere to be. The local robotics expo only came through town once a year, and usually Jaden just read about it after the fact on social media, watching blurry clips of corporate demos he'd never get to see in person. But this time, the entry fee was sponsored for local students. So he got in free. He walked there under a sky the color of dull pewter, hands jammed in his pockets, ignoring the cold in his fingers. As he neared the exhibition center, the city seemed to sharpen around him, neon signage reflecting on wet pavement, vendors selling funnel cakes and cheap coffee outside the glass doors, students in matching club hoodies crowding the sidewalk and jostling each other with excited shouts. Inside, the room buzzed with energy, machines blinking and chirping, rows of booths manned by grinning engineers in branded polos, tables strewn with glossy pamphlets that promised next-gen automation and AI-driven assembly lines. Jaden let out a slow breath, fighting the nervous twist in his gut. He didn't belong here, but he needed to see it. He wandered for an hour, pausing at displays to study their guts, motors, actuators, logic boards, until booth workers tried to talk to him and he'd move on without meeting their eyes. He didn't want to talk about it. He wanted to understand it. Then he saw it. A crowd clustered around a platform marked with caution tape and banners in a polished navy blue, Nova Industrial Systems. In the middle of it all sat a gleaming robotic arm, human-sized, mounted on a bolted pedestal. Jaden could see it was beautiful, precision-machined, with cables routed so cleanly they were practically art. But something was wrong. Even from 10 feet back, he could hear the grinding stutter in the motors, the squeal of a misaligned gear. The company rep was talking too fast, voice brittle with panic, sweat gleaming at his temples. "We just need a moment, technical difficulties, thanks for your patience, folks, just hold on." Jaden's eyes narrowed. He edged closer. A student beside him whispered, "Looks like it's dead. That thing's supposed to assemble micro-components, but it's locking up on the grip cycle." Jaden watched. Noticed the slight shudder before each motor locked. The way the gripper failed to close completely. He felt his fingers twitch with phantom tools. The rep turned away from the crowd, crouching at the console, cursing under his breath. Come on, don't do this to me today." Jaden bit his lip, then stepped forward. "I can fix it." The rep jerked, nearly knocking over a monitor. "What?" "I said I can fix it," Jaden repeated. He realized everyone was looking at him now. Some were smirking. A few recording on their phones. The rep squinted. "Kid, this is a $1 million prototype. You think you can just, tighten a screw and it'll work?" Jaden didn't flinch. "No. I think you installed the wrong tension spring in the gripper assembly. It's overloading the servo. That's why it's failing calibration." Silence. The rep's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Jaden pressed on. Voice low, steady. You've got a 20 Newton spring in there. It needs a 5 Newton. That's a standard part. $5 at a hardware store. A few people laughed, but the rep didn't. His eyes darted back to the robot arm, then to Jaden, then back again. Who are you? Just someone who knows what he's looking at. The rep exhaled shakily. Get over here. Jaden felt his heart hammering so hard it made his vision blur. He climbed over the caution tape, ignoring the murmurs from the onlookers. He crouched beside the pedestal, ran his fingers along the casing until he found the panel release. He worked quickly, carefully. Fingers sure, eyes scanning the inside with practiced precision. And there it was. Obvious. Painful. The wrong spring gleamed at him like an accusation. Jaden swallowed. Told you. He stood, wiped his hands on his hoodie. You got a 5 Newton? The rep stared, then scrambled in a toolbox, producing one with shaking fingers. Jaden took it without a word, popped out the wrong one, snapped the new one in. He closed the panel, hit the calibration reset. The robotic arm word clicked, hummed, then moved in a perfectly smooth, fluid arc, the gripper opening and closing with surgical grace. The crowd gasped. A burst of spontaneous applause rippled outward. Phones shot up to capture the moment. Jaden just stood there, breathing hard, arms at his sides. The rep turned slowly, eyes wide, voice cracking. What's your name? Jaden swallowed. Jaden Walker. Jaden, you ever think about working for us? Jaden blinked, looked at the perfect, moving robot arm, looked at the rep's outstretched hand, and felt something in his chest flicker to life for the first time in a long, long while. Jaden left the expo center in a daze, the sound of applause and the rep's shaking voice still ringing in his ears like the aftershock of a loud noise. He walked slowly, blinking at the bright autumn sun, his fingers absently rubbing at the grease smudge on his hoodie as though it were the only thing keeping him tethered to the ground. Half a block away, he turned down an alley to catch his breath. Leaning against the cool brick wall, he slid to the ground, resting his forehead on his knees. He could still feel the weight of the toolbox in his hands, the way the crowd had fallen completely silent as the robot arm sprang to life in that perfect, smooth arc. $5, he whispered to himself, voice cracking. That's all it was. He laughed once, harsh and humorless. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, cracked screen lighting up with a text from his mom. Pick up Elijah after school today. Don't be late. You hear me? He exhaled slowly, stood, tucked the phone back away. No matter what had just happened, no matter how they'd clapped and offered him work, the world hadn't changed in any practical way yet. He still had things to do. He still had responsibilities. He walked back to the apartment with his hood pulled up, shoulders hunched against the chill. Inside, the air smelled of damp carpet and old radiator heat. The living room was littered with Elijah's homework sheets, half-completed math problems that Jaden would usually finish for him while making dinner. He dropped his backpack onto the couch, sat down, ran his hands over his face. Elijah thundered in a few minutes later, sneakers squeaking on the linoleum. Jay, you're home early. Jaden looked up, managing a tired smile. Yeah. Had somewhere to be this morning. Elijah's eyes widened. Was it the robot show? Did you see the giant drone? My friend said they have laser cutters that can carve wood. Jaden ruffled his brother's hair. Yeah, saw some stuff. It was cool. Elijah plopped onto the floor, opening his math workbook. Can you help me with these? Jaden swallowed. Yeah. Sure, bud. They sat there for an hour, heads bent together, Jaden explaining fractions in a slow, patient voice even while his thoughts spun. The way the rep's eyes had gone wide. That offer. You ever think about working for us? It felt too big, too far away from this cramped apartment with the peeling paint and the heater that clicked and sighed like an old man. But he couldn't stop seeing it, the way the robot arm had finally moved like it was supposed to. Perfect. Like music. That night, after Elijah fell asleep, Jaden sat at the table in the dim light of a single lamp. The apartment was silent except for the faint rattle of the radiator and the distant sirens outside. His mom's door opened. She stepped out, hair pulled back tight, eyes shadowed with exhaustion. She worked double shifts at the nursing home, coming home just long enough to sleep and remind them to lock the door. She saw him hunched over the table. "You do your homework?" He looked up. "Yeah." "Elijah's?" "Yeah." She exhaled, sat across from him. "You went to that show today, didn't you?" He blinked. "Yeah." "How'd you know?" "Because you're smiling and you don't even realize it." He looked away. "It was nothing." She shook her head. "You want to tell me about it or keep pretending I don't know my own son?" He hesitated, then let it spill in a rush. "There was this robot arm, right? Like the kind that can assemble tiny electronics? And it was broken, they couldn't figure it out, the guy was freaking out, and I saw it like I saw it. I knew exactly what was wrong. It was a stupid $5 spring they'd used wrong. I fixed it. It worked perfectly. Everyone watched it. They clapped. And they asked me if I'd work for them." Silence. Her face softened. "They asked you to work for them?" He swallowed. "Yeah." "Are you going to?" He let out a dry laugh. "Mom, I'm 17. I don't even have a resume. I don't have anything. I don't even know if they meant it. They just said it." She watched him for a long time. Maybe they did mean it. "Mama." "Jaden." Her voice was quiet but firm. "You don't get to tell yourself no before they even can. You hear me?" He blinked. "You are smart. You are so smart. Don't you dare talk yourself out of something because you think you're not supposed to be there." His eyes burned. He ducked his head. She reached across the table, placed her hand on his. "Promise me." He didn't trust his voice. He just nodded. Later, in bed, he stared at the cracked ceiling. He pictured that rep's face. The moment the machine worked, that sense of absolute rightness. He turned onto his side, pulling the blanket tight. And for the first time in forever, he let himself imagine what it would be like to belong somewhere that made use of what he could do. Somewhere that wanted him. Jaden didn't expect them to actually call. He honestly thought it had all been one of those weird moments that happen to other people, the kind you see online in a grainy video, everyone clapping, the crowd dispersing, and then life goes back to normal. He spent Sunday cleaning the apartment because his mom asked him to, and Monday trying to stay awake through chemistry, doodling circuit diagrams in the margins of his notes. But Tuesday afternoon he got the call. His phone buzzed in his pocket while he was sitting on the steps outside school waiting for Elijah to finish. He almost didn't answer because it was an unknown number, but something told him to. "Hello." The voice on the other end was the rep. Jordan, that was his name, Jaden remembered now. Sounding rushed but friendly. "Jaden Walker? This is Jordan from Nova Industrial. Listen, I'm serious about what I said. Our lead engineer was impressed by what you did. The team would really like to meet you." Jaden felt his heart pound against his ribs. I don't. I know it's short notice, but we'd love for you to come in this week. Just to talk. Show us more of how you think. We'll pay for transportation. You don't need to bring anything. Just be yourself." Jaden closed his eyes. "I don't own, like, a suit or anything." There was a laugh on the other end, but it wasn't mean. "Don't worry about that. This is an engineering lab, not a bank. Hoodie's fine. Just say yes." Jaden bit his lip. His mouth felt dry. Okay. Yes. Excellent. Thursday, 10 a.m. We'll email you directions. When he hung up, his hands were shaking. Elijah came running up seconds later with his backpack bouncing, talking a mile a minute about kickball and math homework. Jaden tried to listen. He really did. But his mind was buzzing like a broken transformer. Wednesday night, he couldn't sleep. He lay awake on the couch, listening to the radiator hiss, thinking about everything that could go wrong. What if they laughed? What if they realized he wasn't special, just a kid with too much time and an internet connection? What if they called security and told him to get lost? His mom found him at 2 a.m., still fully dressed, staring at the ceiling. Big day tomorrow? He didn't answer at first. She sat on the arm of the couch, brushed his hair back gently. You're going, right? He closed his eyes. Yeah, I'm going. She nodded. Good. That's my boy. He took the bus alone that morning, clutching the printed directions like a lifeline. His stomach twisted so badly he thought he might puke. Nova Industrial's building was newer than anything else on the block, all glass and steel, reflecting the cold winter sky. He wiped his palms on his hoodie and went inside. The lobby was too bright, too clean. A receptionist with perfect hair greeted him with a practiced smile. You're Jaden? They're expecting you. Just head up the elevator to 3. He thanked her, voice cracking, and she gave him a softer smile in return. He stepped off on 3 to find Jordan waiting, waving him over like an old friend. You came. Glad you didn't bail. Jaden shrugged, too nervous to manage words at first. Jordan didn't seem to notice. He clapped him on the shoulder and led him down a hallway lined with sleek lab windows. Inside, he could see engineers hunched over workbenches, 3D printers humming, robotic arms assembling delicate circuits. It was like stepping into the future. They brought him into a conference room with whiteboards covering every wall. There were 3 engineers already there. One older, bald, with sharp eyes behind thin glasses. One younger woman in a lab coat with her hair in a messy bun. Another guy with tattoos peeking out from his sleeves, arms crossed. They all looked at him, really looked at him. Jordan cleared his throat. Everyone, this is Jaden Walker, the kid who fixed our showcase arm at the expo. Tattoo guy raised an eyebrow. With a $5 spring, I heard. Jaden's mouth went dry. He swallowed, nodded. Yeah. The older man leaned back in his chair. That wasn't luck. You recognized the failure immediately. Why? Jaden felt heat crawl up his neck. It was obvious. The servo was overloading. You could hear it. The grip cycle failed halfway. Only thing that would cause that is overtension. Wrong spring. Wrong rating. The woman tilted her head. But how did you know? Most of our interns didn't catch that. Jaden licked his lips. Because I do this at home. All the time. I take apart junk. I fix stuff. Old printers. Motors. Anything I can find. I know the sound of a servo choking. There was silence. No one laughed. No one smirked. The older man's mouth twitched. Show us. Jordan handed Jaden a marker. Gestured to the whiteboard. Draw it. Explain it like you did with me at the show. Jaden's hand shook as he uncapped the marker. He turned to the board, exhaled, and started to draw. Slowly, methodically, he sketched out the motor housing, annotated the gear ratios, labeled the spring constants, explained the stress loads and servo thresholds in a low, steady voice, tripping only once before correcting himself. When he turned around, his heart hammering in his ears, they were all quiet. Watching. Listening. Finally, the older man stood. Held out his hand. Jaden, I'm Dr. Patel, led on advanced robotics. You want to come work with us? Jaden blinked. Work? Like, actually work. Dr. Patel nodded. Paid. Real projects. Training. Mentorship. School support if you want it. We'd be lucky to have you. Jaden's hand shook as he reached out and took the older man's. And for the first time in his life, someone didn't just tell him he was smart. They proved they meant it. Jaden walked home in the fading light, feeling the offer like a stone in his pocket. He turned it over in his mind with each step, remembering the warmth of Dr. Patel's handshake, the quiet, serious look on the engineers' faces as they'd listened to him without interrupting, without dismissing him as some mouthy kid who shouldn't even be there. But with every block he walked, reality pressed harder on him. He remembered the rent notice folded behind the microwave. The envelope his mom kept resealing with tape so Elijah wouldn't see the red stamp. The way the grocery list on the fridge always had milk and bread circled like they were luxury items they might have to skip. He climbed the apartment stairs slowly. Inside, Elijah was on the floor, Lego pieces spread everywhere, muttering sound effects under his breath. Their mom was in her scrubs, hair coming loose from her bun, reheating leftover beans and rice in the microwave. She looked up the second the door shut. You're late. Her voice wasn't angry, just tired. Jaden swallowed. I know. He dropped his backpack, sat at the table. She turned back to the microwave. You went. He nodded even though she wasn't looking. Yeah. And? He let out a slow breath. They offered me a job. The microwave dinged. She didn't open it right away. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed over her stomach, eyes flicking between him and Elijah, who hadn't looked up from his Lego spaceship. A real job. Jaden nodded again. Yeah, real. Paid. They said training. Mentorship. Even help with school. She stared at him so hard it felt like she could see through the hoodie and the worn-out t-shirt, see the way his heart was hammering. Do you want it? He didn't answer at first. He picked at a chip in the old Formica table. I don't know if I can do it. Her voice was softer now. Gentler. Jaden. He shook his head, voice catching. What if I'm not good enough? What if it was a fluke? I don't know half the stuff they do. I've never even been in a lab like that. What if they realize I'm just some broke kid who taught himself on a broken Chromebook and tell me to get out? Silence. Elijah was making rocket noises. His mom finally pushed away from the counter, sat across from him. Look at me. He did. Slowly, reluctantly. You know what I see? He didn't answer. I see a kid who's fixed every busted thing in this apartment since he was 9. Who built a radio from trash? Who fixes the neighbor's fan for free because she's too old to buy a new one? Who knows more about motors and circuits than half the people teaching shop at your school? His throat tightened. I see someone who sees the world not as it is but how it should work. That's a gift, Jaden. That's not something you learn. That's something you are. He dropped his gaze, voice cracking. But what if they don't want me when they know everything? She reached across the table, took his shaking hand. Then you keep showing them, every day, until they can't ignore it. And if they still do, you find someone who won't. He wiped at his eyes roughly. I don't want to leave you and Elijah all the time. She huffed, watery laugh in her voice. I can handle your brother. Go change your world so he sees he can change his. He squeezed her hand, nodded. Okay. They ate in tired silence after that, but something felt easier between them, like they'd stopped fighting gravity for a minute and were just floating. That night, Jaden couldn't sleep again, but it wasn't the anxious, churning insomnia that had plagued him before. It was the restless excitement of possibility. He lay on the couch, one arm under his head, staring at the shadows on the ceiling, imagining a lab that smelled of solder and oil, the quiet click of 3D printers, the soft buzz of servo motors coming to life. Thursday morning, he woke up before dawn. He didn't even need an alarm. He dressed carefully, checking for stains, retying his sneakers. Elijah sat at the table, sleepy-eyed but excited. "You going today?" Jaden nodded. "Yeah, I am." Elijah grinned, showing the gap where his front tooth was missing. "Are you gonna be a scientist?" Jaden smirked. "Maybe." "Can I tell my friends?" He ruffled his brother's hair. "Yeah, kid. Tell 'em." Their mom watched from the kitchen, one hand on her coffee mug. She didn't say anything, just smiled, small but proud. The bus ride felt endless. He sat by the window watching the city wake up, vendors setting up stalls, kids in uniforms hurrying to school, office workers checking their watches with frowns. He felt outside it all, but for once not in a bad way. He got off at the sleek, modern building, took a breath, opened the door. Jordan was waiting, grinning wide, clapping him on the shoulder. "Welcome back, man. Ready to blow some minds?" Jaden's throat was dry, but he managed to speak. "Yeah." He swallowed, nodded more firmly. "Yeah, I'm ready." The lab smelled like solder, ozone, and promise. Jaden followed Jordan past rows of open workbenches, each one humming with tiny motors or displaying blinking lights, digital screens filled with code and schematics he was already itching to dive into. He clutched his notebook, pages filled with sketches, ideas, equations, things he hadn't dared show anyone before, with both hands. At the center of the room, Dr. Patel stood with a group of engineers, gesturing toward a prototype robot roughly the size of a small car. It had 6 articulated limbs, each designed to lift, grip, and operate with a precision margin of less than half a millimeter. "There he is, Dr. Patel said, glancing up. "Come here, Jaden." Jaden stepped forward slowly, heart pounding in his ears. The engineers turned, some curious, some skeptical. "Dr. Patel waved at the half-disassembled robot. "We've got a calibration issue with the adaptive load sensors. Our software team ran simulations, but the arm's still compensating too late and overshooting the target. Think you can figure out why?" It wasn't a test. It was a challenge. A real one. Jaden blinked, then nodded once, hard. "Can I see the logs?" The skeptical engineer, the one with the tattoos, snorted. "He wants logs. Kid's been here 3 minutes." Jaden didn't even flinch. "I want to see where the error starts." Dr. Patel motioned to the terminal. Jaden stepped up, scrolled, scanned. He wasn't fast, but he was exact. Line by line, he murmured under his breath, his fingers drumming out rhythms of thought on the table. Then his voice sharpened. "Your sensor array's wired to the wrong response profile. It's reacting like a static weight, but the load's variable. It's overshooting because it's using predictive feedback that doesn't match the signal it's getting." Tattoo guy stepped forward, frowning. "What? That shouldn't even be possible." "It is," Jaden said, already pointing. "Right here. You copied the profile from the loader bot, but this arm uses a gripper with tension variance." The room went silent. Jaden didn't move. He didn't boast. Just stood waiting. Dr. Patel gave a low whistle, then turned to his team. "Make the adjustment. Now." Within 10 minutes, the arm moved in a slow, fluid arc, clean, precise, no overshoot. The fingers gripped a tiny circuit board, placed it perfectly into a micro-welding frame, and pulled away like a ghost. Applause broke out in the lab. Real applause. And this time, Jaden didn't flinch. He stood there, blinking in the light, a little stunned but smiling. They gave him a name badge. Not a temporary sticker, but a real printed one. His name in clean block letters. Jaden Walker, Junior Robotics Associate. He wore it like armor. The next few weeks passed like a dream. He came in 3 days a week, sometimes more when he could manage it after school. They paid him well. Not charity pay, real money. Enough to help his mom catch up on bills. Enough to buy Elijah that science kit he'd always stared at in the catalog. The team came around quickly. Tattoo guy Derek was the first to admit he'd been wrong. Didn't think some hoodie-wearing teenager was gonna make me rewrite my motor sequence, he said one night. Now I won't run a line without you double-checking it. They laughed. They shared tools. They trusted him. He was more than a fluke. More than a lucky guess. He was part of the team. And he belonged. At home, things changed too. There was food in the fridge. The red envelope stopped showing up. Elijah started building robots of his own, bad ones, but Jaden helped him anyway. His mom smiled more. Slept a little longer. Let herself believe in the future again. One Friday evening, as the sun poured gold across the cracked sidewalks, Jaden walked home with his badge still clipped to his hoodie. Elijah came running up from the playground, waving. Jaden, did your robot win today? Jaden laughed, scooping his brother into a hug. It sure did. And in that moment, with the sun warm on his back, his brother's arms around his neck, and $1 million future still being built one wire at a time, he realized something. He hadn't just fixed a robot. He'd fixed a life. His own.